So how do you respond to the problem of the unevangelized? This was actually one of the questions that my brother brought up when I first discussed with him. I don't know how familiar you are with my story, but he became an atheist about 5-6 years ago, and that's what sent me on this journey in apologetics. So, for instance, this is basically the way that he put it. There's a guy in Africa, he's never heard the gospel. How is this guy automatically condemned to hell to suffer eternal torment?
Okay,
how
so
is
I'm
that a
going to
just
role play
picture?
the tactical game plan here. But not because I'm trying to be fancy here. Because this is naturally the way I do it. So describe for me precisely the problem as your brother understands it. I followed what he said, but that's just a factual statement that how is this guy going to hell? So what is the problem here? What would be the problem if you want to play your brother for a moment here? What would be the problem? Notice, by the way, I'm sipping out of the role play for a second. I'm asking a clarification question. I want to get more information. I want to see what you understand about how our system works, because I think a proper understanding of our theological system solves the problem. It may not be psychologically satisfying to some people, but I think there's a solution there. But I want you to talk a little bit more and give me a clearer idea.
So there's two ways that I'll respond. And the first way is how I think he would have responded in the conversation, which is to say that that's just immoral. That would be the first way. The second way, I think, which is more sophisticated.
Wait, what would be immoral about it? What would be immoral?
It would be unjust.
Unjust how? Tell me that, and I'm not being contentious here. I'm saying, what is the precise nature of the injustice? What would he say? That the person goes to hell because he never heard of Jesus, so it is in virtue of a geographic accident that he is punished? Is that the way you think?
I suppose.
Well, then you misunderstand Christianity, because nobody goes to hell, according to Christianity, because of a geographic accident. What do you understand the basis of judgment to be from the Christian perspective? I'm role-playing now still.
What
do you understand? Okay, you know, in Christianity, there's judgment, right?
Right.
Okay, so what is the basis of the judgment? Do you think the basis of the judgment is whether people have heard Jesus or not?
I would say he'd probably say yes.
Okay, well, that's a misunderstanding, and I'm sorry you think it this way. If you go to the end of the story, okay, and there's a judgment, and it says there in the judgment, all the people are before God, everybody, all the people you're concerned about, and you're rightfully concerned about. They're all standing there before God, and everyone is individually judged. What are they judged by? It says right there, they are judged according to their behavior, according to their deeds. Jesus said that every casual word that you speak, you will give an account of in the day of judgment, okay? So now here's my question of you.
So we're both role-playing.
I'm just kidding. I'll call you Bob for the sake of discussion. I don't know what your brother's name is, but just say Bob. So my question of you, Bob, is this person that you have in mind who has never heard of Jesus, do you think this person has done any wrong things in their life that they need to answer for? What do you think?
Probably.
Yeah, that would be probably an understatement. I mean, if they just did 10 wrong things a day from the time they were 10 to 60, so we'll, on either end of that, we'll give them a free ride, but just those 50 years, you got something like 186,000 infractions of the law. That's just 10 a day. And, you know, I've had 10 against me just during this conversation, just so you know. So in this particular case, if this person gets judged as guilty, how would that be unjust? Notice the question there. The claim is that it's unjust.
Right.
So I'm asking, how is that unjust if given the person's guilt, regardless of whether they've heard of Jesus or not?
Right.
So how is that unjust?
So at that point, I'd have to throw up my hands. Bob is throwing up his hands. I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, okay. So the theology here is that people don't get condemned because they rejected Jesus. That's not there. That's not there at the Great White Throne Judgment. They are condemned according to their works. And this is all through the New Testament, okay? Lots of places, you know. And that's the grounds or the basis for the judgment. So even a person who never hears about the remedy is still responsible for their own behavior before a sovereign. All right? And so there's no injustice here. Now, somebody may say, well, it's not fair because they didn't hear. Well, are you presuming that if they heard, they would have bent their knee and received the mercy that is being offered? How would you know? Anyone who knows that would be God. And I'm pretty convinced that anybody who would do that, God would get the message to them. That's another theological issue. But all I'm doing now is addressing the question of the injustice. And notice how, we're out of the role play now, but notice how I'm using my questions, because I know what's wrong here. I know there's a wrong assumption about Christian theology, okay? And there's a charge against Christianity. It's unjust. Okay, tell me precisely what is the nature of the injustice. And I noticed, even in your case, you're thinking, I don't know how to answer that. What, because people make these charges as if the charge is completely obvious, and who would miss this? But then when asked to spell it out, they have a hard time. Even the problem of evil. Okay, well, you got a problem of evil, right, Christian? What's the problem? Well, there's evil in the world. Yeah, I'm glad you think there is. Okay, well, you're in God, you got God, right? So there's the problem. What exactly is the problem? And if once they spell it out, like in a syllogism or something kind of like a line of reasoning, they're going to make a mistake, because it turns out that there is no logical inconsistency between evil and God's goodness and God's power, God's existence. There's none. Philosophers know this and the deductive problem of evil, but this is why I want to get people to spell these things out. So all I'm doing is gathering information at this point, but the person is giving me what I need to go further with it. And this is where the apologetics kind of comes in. So we've kind of gone full circle in this little role play with your original question.